Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. I wanted to go over some things that more amateur photographers that might be watching might not know, and that is how to make your photos sharper. It's something that everyone at some point has asked themselves and everyone at some point has probably researched on the internet, but I wanted to help you take your photos from this to this. So I wanted to show you exactly what you could do to help out with that and to, well, in a sense, learn a little bit more about your camera, how it works, and how to make it work together so that you can properly take a sharp photo. So I'm going to kind of go into the spiel. I'm going to have some pictures up on the screen. I'm going to have charts, stuff like that. It's not going to go too technical. This is just specifically for the sharpness of the photos. It's not about how the camera works. All right, so I am going to have some photos up on the screen, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about your camera and what everything means on it as far as when it comes to things like sharpness and aperture. So let's kind of start with the basic. What is ISO? So ISO, it's a beautiful little thing on the right, usually on the camera that says, it could be an auto, it can be in anything. A lot of cameras go up to over 100,000. You really don't want to go up to that, but it is possible with your camera. What it essentially does, it kind of does what Lightroom does, where it just brings your exposure up. Now, it is mostly artificial light. It's basically brightening up your photo. So with something like that, you want to be very careful not to go too crazy. But as I said, it does exactly what Lightroom does. If you were in Lightroom editing and up the exposure, you would see virtually no difference from if you did it in camera or in Lightroom. So do it that what you will. Take the shot how you need to take it. The second thing I want to talk about is aperture. Now that could be many numbers. It usually starts at 0.95 for the really, really expensive bigger lenses and goes all the way up to f32. So there's really a broad range there. But what it is actually your lens. Built into your lens are a couple of blades called aperture blades. They actually allow it to close properly, first off, to allow less light in, but also they help with the shape of the bokeh, which is in the background, and how blurry it is in the background. So I'm going to attempt to show y'all what I'm talking about. I have an older camera here, and there you go, right there. Those are the blades. This isn't a 50mm 1.8, but as you see, when I'm closing it or opening it, it opens, and when I close it, it closes. So said it's a little hard to see, but it is in there. Kind of cool to see too. But that's f-stop. That's how you'll work on that. The last thing I want to go over is the shutter speed. There's a general rule, came kind of from the film days, but it's called the handhold rule. What it means is that if you have a lens that's over 100 millimeters, your shutter speed should always match that. So if you have a lens that's 100 millimeters, you should have at least 1 over 100th of a second to take a sharp photo. That does change, in different environments, but there's that. The other thing you want to focus on is if you have a crop camera, say for Canon, for example, I believe it's 1.7, so it would be a 170 millimeter. So that's something to keep in mind. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. It's kind of outdated, but it does still exist, and it is a good rule of thumb to help you get started. Now, obviously, for certain things like sports, you're going to want to go way higher. I would recommend personally for action sports, at least I usually tell people 1 over 2,000, but some people say 1 over 1250 at the minimum. I usually do 1 over 2,000 because for me, I want to capture the action. That's entirely up to you. I will put up some pictures I've taken of action sports with going over 1 or 2,000 or greater. But in things like inside, I shoot esports. At esports tournaments, there's not a ton of movement going on. So for stuff like that, it's really, you can do a little bit lower. I usually shoot around 1 over 320th. Again, that's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to your camera's capabilities. Mirrorless cameras tend to have better low light capabilities than DSLRs. It's just how it is. But those are a couple things I wanted to mention to you. Now, something I want to make sure I iterate, this only affects camera, like the lens blur, camera blur, when you're shaking it. This doesn't affect missing focus. It doesn't affect anything like that. Motion blur on the person, it affects yourself. So there's that. Now, there are a couple of things that can affect focus. So that could be lack of light. The camera actually uses usually a contrast system to actually focus. So if you don't have enough contrast between your subject and the background, it might struggle to find them. And a really big thing is the center point focus on most cameras is actually the most accurate. So if you're struggling to find focus, it might be worth it to switch over to center point and just shoot center, you know, aim where you need to aim, but shoot center. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, motion blur will occur not necessarily in the camera, but it can occur when someone else is moving. So if you have your camera at 125th of a second and someone makes a quick jerky movement, then yeah, it will most likely blur because their hand is moving faster than the shutter is. So as I said, you want to play with it a little bit and work on that. Something else I wanted to mention, when you hit your shutter button, you don't have to jab it. There are moments when that's necessary, especially during a high intensity moment. Again, action sports, because that's where my background comes from. So stuff like that, you might need a quick focus, quick shot. But if you have it too low and you hit it really hard, your camera will shake, and that will affect the picture. So you want to be very careful with that. And kind of the final thing I wanted to talk about, and not really talk about, just mention, is don't be afraid to shoot more than one shot. I will go ahead and show you. I have a series. Sometimes I take pictures and there's 10 of them in the series, but you never know. And in that section, you'll see focus, out of focus, out of focus, you know, motion blur, etc. You'll see all of that because it happens. Sometimes you get one good shot out of 10. If you're shooting anything digital, you have the space. It's worth it to do. Another big thing not to worry about is I would say don't worry about noise, especially if you're shooting at an indoor venue. There are a lot of things that can help you out with noise reduction. Built into Lightroom is AI denoiser, which I stand by. It does a fantastic job at clearing up the noise. You want to capture the shot. You're there to capture the story, capture the memory. And at the end of the day, a lot of people, especially athletes and in general, you know, athletes mostly, they don't care about there being a little bit of noise. They care about the memory. That being said, you don't want to introduce too much noise because it will take away the detail of the photo. So you just want to do what you can, work with these all together. It's called the exposure triangle, and I will put a picture of it on the screen. So with all this said, as I said, just take the shot. It doesn't, and not everything matters. Sometimes rules are meant to be broken. There are times in NASCAR that they might want a photo of motion blur. There are times that rules are meant to be broken. This is strictly to focus on sharper photos. So I hope this has helped. If there's anything else you'd like me to talk about while I'm making videos, please let me know in the comments down below. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Hopefully y'all got something out of it. So hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.